Hello and welcome back. Slay the Spire 2 is finally here, and with it there are two brand new characters for us to explore. Very excited to dig into it. Today I want to be talking about how to win, how to play the Regent, everything you need to know about the character. I had previously posted a video about this for the Necrobinder, the other new character, and people liked it so much they suggested I make this video. So if you haven't seen it, go watch that one. But today we're going to answer all your questions about the Regent. Briefly, like the guideline of what I'm going to talk about, just going to start introducing the unique mechanics of the character, and then we'll get into the gameplay style, like what sort of things do you want to be doing, and then we'll talk more about specific cards and like what builds to look for, what cards to take in builds overview, and then we'll end with a tier list, just talking about overall how the cards rank. Worth mentioning, it's still early access, and I think of all the characters, this one probably will get the most tuning from early access, which will be a good thing because it just feels like a lot of the numbers are just a little bit off, but it's still I love the character so much, so I'm looking forward to this character just continuing to get better through early access and into the full release of the game. If you want some just like gameplay examples, I've posted quite a few videos. All of these are very, I think, decisive victories and good examples of quite a few different archetypes that I talk about here. So if you want to learn as you go, like watching someone do it, just go check out these on my channel. They're all a lot of fun to watch. So the first mechanic is Forge, and it's based around Sovereign Blade. So Sovereign Blade is this card, base damage 10, it has retain, it costs 2. And then there's quite a few cards that just say Forge X, so like Forge 10. Whatever this number is, it'll add that damage to Sovereign Blade for the duration of the fight. So if you Forge 10, this will go up to 20 damage. And then if you Forge 10 again later in the fight, it'll go up to 30 damage. So it's nice because it's cumulative. And the first time you play a Forge card, Sovereign Blade will spawn into your hand. What I didn't realize is if Sovereign Blade has already spawned, Forge will not spawn it into your hand again. So it's pretty hard to reliably play Sovereign Blade more than once per combat. And we'll talk about that later. I think that's one of the biggest limitations of it is it's more of a one-shot build than it is sustained damage, and that becomes somewhat of a problem. So Forge, right now, I think could benefit the most from tuning. Either make the numbers bigger, make it summon to hand. We'll talk about that later, though. Star, it's just a separate resource, basically. So there's cards that give you Star, and then there's cards that cost Star resource. Yeah, simple as that. It's pretty cool. And you start with 3 star from your starting relic, so quite a few cards can be castable. The upgraded starting relic for this character is one of the best in the game, I think, because you start with 6 star, and suddenly you're able to just cast stuff like this on turn 1. that's pretty powerful, being able to do that on turn 1. There's also it's not really a new mechanic, but it's done differently on this character than it has been on most other characters. It's Transform. So I think it's literally just these 3 cards, but they can turn cards into like minion cards. So it turns them into this kind of thing. So like 0 mana, gain 9 block exhaust, or do damage exhaust. It's cool. It's not like functionally different than anything you've seen in Slay the Spire 1, but it's a cool different flavor. And what's interesting is you're basically getting rid of cards in your deck, turning them into things that exhaust. So these are all quite powerful deck thinning mechanics. In addition to being just like kind of good, turning something into 2, 7 damage draw card for 0 is not bad either. And then the last new mechanic is Debris. As far as I'm aware, these are the only 2 Debris cards, and they're both, I haven't figured out how to make them work quite yet, because you're basically giving yourself status effects, but you can play them to exhaust. So I don't know. It's okay. This is something I also might expect to see some tuning, but there are some things you can do with Debris, which I'll talk about towards the very end of the video. There's a couple, if you get like the right builds of cards, you can do cool stuff with them. So overall, the biggest challenge with this character is, this isn't exact, but I just made like a mock-up graph of card quality. The Regent has probably a higher density of straight up excellent cards than most other characters, as well as having a higher density of just stone unplayable cards than any other character, with very few cards in between. So it makes it I think this is probably where a lot of new players struggle. If you're not identifying what the good cards are and what you're building towards, you can get a lot of packs that just actively harm your deck. And so you're going to be skipping a lot of draft picks, which sounds bad. And I think this is something, like I said, early access should hopefully fix quite a bit of this, like bring some of these up just a little bit. I think the bimodal distribution is totally fine for the character. It definitely brings a different feel, but just, you know, this many unplayable cards is a lot for one character. But I still think the character is great. The good cards are really good, and we're going to talk about those. A couple examples of just some of, like, the strange disparities in card quality is, like, Kingly Kick and Knockout Blow, both uncommons. This one decreases its cost by 1 every time you draw it. So when you draw it, it's going to be a 3 cost to deal 24. You can redraw it again, and then it's a 2 cost 24. Most of the time, that's where you're going to get. This is just a 3 cost 30 that gives you 5-star if you kill something. These are cards on the same character, by the way. Another good example, Crescent Spear versus Guiding Star. This is like 6 damage plus 2 for every cards that have a star cost. So you have to do all this like building around it. This is just 1 mana, 12 damage, draw 2 cards. Like, it's the same character. And then the last one, these two are hilarious. This one is like, whenever you attack an enemy, it loses 1 strength this turn. So maybe you can give one enemy -3 strength if you play 3 attacks in a turn. This does work with multi-hit attacks, so you can do some stuff, but if you're hitting them a lot of times, they're just dead, so that's weird. And then Void Form basically just says everything's free. This is like one of the strongest cards I've ever seen, and this is like one of the worst cards I've ever seen. So there's a lot of disparity in card quality here, but that's what videos like this can be helpful. Pick the good ones, and you'll have a great time with this character. And that being said, in general for this character, I found cards to be more important than relics, because if you can't find the good cards, there's nothing for the relics to help support you to do. You're just going to lose. So I tend to push for card rewards until you get like a sizable base, and then you can start looking for relics later, but you really need like a functional core deck in order to make this character work. So push for card rewards as quickly and as often as possible, hitting shops, just so you can look, because you don't need that many, you just need the right ones. Alright, so now let's talk about the right ones and how to play the character. The playstyle that I have had the most success with, these are pulled from in-game screenshots, is basically building towards one big hit. So your whole deck is set around making one thing hit super hard. So like Radiate, deal damage for every star gained this turn. You want to get a bunch of star in 1 turn. So, you know, I got 25 star in 1 turn, and then there's other things you can do to make the damage go up. The default is 3, so I went from 3 to 52. So there's a lot of things you can do to make it stronger and just like absolutely obliterate stuff. For Sovereign Blade, similar thing, you just cast Forge a bunch of times, make the sword really big, and then just one-shot a boss. That's kind of the general play pattern there. And then there's a bunch of other cards too, like Stardust, where you can spend X to do damage to each enemy X times. But in general, rather than playing like a bunch of small attacks, you build up to one big attack, play the big attack, kill everything, go to the next fight. Quite a lot of my audience comes from my Magic the Gathering background, so this is very similar to like playing the Storm archetype in Magic the Gathering. If this means nothing to you, that's fine, but for those who've played Magic, it's very similar to this kind of playstyle for the Regent, for this type of build. The next type of build is just like star good stuff. A lot of the star cards are quite strong, like 0 mana 5-star, deal 33 damage, apply 3 weak and 3 vulnerable. That's great. Child of the Stars is one of the strongest cards on the character. With this, you just don't need to block. Because if you just play this into Comet, you get 10 blocked for free. If it's upgraded, you get 15 blocked for free. And you can reliably generate star through things like Genesis. This upgrade is going to give you 3 star per turn, which basically means 6 block per turn at a minimum. If you're spending it, potentially far more block. And the cool thing about Child of the Stars and this is like, you don't have to play this card if you don't need to block. So you can kind of save up star and then spend it all at once and block. So it just really gives you this good attacking engine because these cost 0. You can spend your energy doing other things. And then you get a block through Child of the Stars and other means. The third playstyle is just literally this card. This card is incredible. The important thing to recognize for this, the first 2 cards you play each turn are free to play. This includes star cost as well. So like Comet, you can just play it for free. Genesis, just play it for free. It says end your turn, but like you basically have 3 energy at the most anyway, so you just play this last. And the end your turn doesn't matter almost at all. The only time it came up is when I had 2 of these and I had 6 energy and I wanted to play both and I couldn't. That's the only time it's ever mattered. And it, you know, once you play 1, that's plenty to win the game with. But just take this card, just take all the good cards with it. You'll have a great time. Do that. And then the last playstyle is setting up for like a really small deck in Infinites. This character has some of the best targeted exhaust out of any character, especially guards. This card is incredible. I undervalued it for a long time, but you can exhaust like 9 specific cards with guards, turn them into great block to give yourself time to set up your infinite. Because you can turn like 9 cards into 0 cost block 9, and you just use that to survive while you get rid of the last few cards through charge and be gone and that kind of thing. So this one, not the most common to play for because you kind of need guards to make it work. But if you end up with a lot of card removes and you have charge and be gone, you can make it work too. And the infinites with this character are quite easy to accomplish. So general playstyle stuff, we'll talk about what early damage you should take, what cards you should take to support your engine. And this is kind of like throughout a run, this is what you should be looking for. Number 1, get early damage so you can kill elites quickly. Once you have early damage, start looking for engine support cards. You can take them in parallel, but early damage is like the main priority. Once you have that, you can start taking some support cards for whatever build you're looking to go into. You do need to survive. Act 1 can be a little bit precarious on the Regent because like you start to get strong usually around Act 2. So Act 1, you're really just going through like good early damage and block cards. You typically don't have an engine yet. So surviving is the most important, just getting some max HP. You might have to rest in Act 1, and that's okay. Because Acts 2 and 3, you just become a god. I don't think I've been more strong on any character in Act 3 than the Regent. Act 3 just feels easy and free. If you build successfully, which you should be able to do if you're doing it correctly. So early damage, these 3 are kind of the premier cards to be looking for. Be Gone in particular is very nice because Minion Dive Bomb, let's see if I have it. Yeah, this card slaps. So it's 1 mana, 4 damage. Then you get rid of a bad card and turn it into 13 damage. So this collectively is 2 mana for 17 damage, but you can divide it however you want. And this thins your deck. It gets rid of bad cards. This card's great. Just take it. You'll have a great time. Guiding Star, also really good. Draw 2 cards next turn. 12 damage for 1. The 2-star is a bit expensive. So you can't like always take this if you don't have any energy or star generation. But even if you have a little bit, just take this. You'll have a great time. And then Photon Cut, 10 damage. Draw 1. Put a card from your hand on top of your draw pile. This type of mechanic, putting cards on top of your draw pile, is kind of how the Regent does card manipulation. So instead of like retain, you put it on top and then you have to redraw it, which is a little bit clunky. I think this character has some of the clunkiest deck manipulation, but it has such good deck thinning that honestly you might not need too much deck manipulation to do what you're trying to do. And 10 damage for 1 is a great rate. I love Photon Cut. These are kind of a tier below, but they're all commons and they're all quite good. Solar Strike, totally serviceable, 8 damage, gain a star. If you're starting to take things like Astral Pulse, you might just want pick up a Solar Strike, get a little bit of star passively. Astral Pulse is pretty good AoE, 14 damage to all enemies, notably costing 0 energy, very important as well, because you start with 3 star. So if you just have this in your deck and like barely any other star stuff, this enables some really strong turn 1s where you go like, you know, Celestial Might into Astral Pulse 14 to everything. This does 18. You suddenly can like one-shot a 30 health enemy. It's pretty nice. Celestial Might has impressed me. Let's see if I have this. Yeah, there's quite a few Vigor cards. Vigor increases the damage of your next attack by X, so in this case 2, and that scales for every single hit. So if you go, this is a really common like early game play pattern for this character is have Patter. Excellent block card, 1 mana, 8 block. You gain 2 Vigor and then you play Celestial Might. This would then do 8 damage 3 times, which is 24. I think it upgrades to do 8 damage 3 times, so this would make it do 30 damage basically for 2. It's great. So yeah, take this, upgrade it. Patter into Vigor, Patter into Celestial Might is such a good early game play to get you through. You can get through almost all of Act 1 with just this and a little bit more. If you have like Vulnerable and Weak, then you can hit for quite a lot of damage. If you're lucky, these cards are excellent. Knockout Blow in particular, I love this one. Just 30 damage for 3. If you kill something, you get 5-star. This is a very good source of star for everything except for boss fights. So I wouldn't like consider it your only star source, but it's nice supplemental and it makes a lot of the early fights easier. Because the Regent tends to be very good against bosses anyway, so a little bit of extra help against the minion fights, very helpful. Shining Strike is awesome because you deal 8 damage and get 2-star, and it goes on top, which means you can play it and get 2-star next turn as well. And then you can play and get 2-star next turn. So this is kind of like a clunky way of getting 2-star every single turn, but that's not bad considering how powerful the star payoffs can be. So definitely love this card, and the put it on top is a benefit more than it is a drawback most of the time. In the late game, like Act 3, it can get a little bit cumbersome, but by the time you hit Act 3, you should be strong enough just to kill everything anyway, and you don't care. Like, you just don't play this card. Or you turn it into a minion, and then you're fine. And then Bombardment, also like 18 damage every turn for free. This one's just great, especially if you're like more defensively oriented. It's a sweet card. In general, this is probably the best comment on the character. It just does everything you want. The upgrade is really nice because the upgrade makes it gain 2-star and draw 2 cards. This is like the grease that makes this character work. Just take it. It's pretty hard to have too many copies of this card. Like 4 might be pushing it, but 1 or 2, you definitely want to have those in your deck. This just gives you deck manipulation. The star is very important. It's an excellent card. And then some other general star support cards that you can kind of just pick up whenever because you're going to want star. Hidden Cache tends to be the highest base star generation. If you have some like 5 and 6 cost star cards, this becomes pretty important. Gather Light is just a nice block card. A little bit of star, like Gather Light, Solar Strike are really good, just role players for the character. And if you take them early, they open up possibilities of what you can take in the future. Whereas if you like skip these cards, you might not have enough like incidental star generation to make the character work. If you're really lucky, these cards are incredible. Take them. Royal Gamble, I guess you can't really take this first because it costs 5. Well, you can. I think this card's good enough where you could just take it early and then just like make it work out later. Because this is the best way to get star on the character. So honestly, you know what? Just take this card and figure it out later what you're going to do with it. It'll be a dead draw for a little bit, but the payoff will be worth it, I promise. Convergence is really, really good because you retain your hand. The upgrade gives 2-star next turn and an energy as well. So it kind of pays for itself. Retain your hand is kind of like card draw. Very little downside to this card, just a lot of upside. And then Genesis is like the best sustained star generation engine. It upgrades to give 3-star per turn. And that's, yeah, it's incredible. So just, if you're lucky, pretty much take these whenever you see them, unless you're far into another build. Good ways to survive. These tend to be the best common block cards. I think Patter is the best. 1 mana, 8 block. I like the Vigor a lot. There's a lot of multi-hit attacks on this card, but Cloak of Stars also quite nice. Just 0 mana, gain 7 block. Pretty good. And then paired with Gather Light, you can basically just spend 1 energy to block for 14. It's a good combo. And then if you happen to get lucky, these block cards all way overperform. It is kind of embarrassing looking at Cloak of Stars when Particle Wall exists. Like, gain 9 block and return this to your hand, so you can just keep playing it. Or Reflect gains 17 block and redirect blocked damage to the attacker. This is one of the best block cards that scales into the late game, because if you block for 30, this just hits for like 30. And that's not bad. Bulwark is one of the best like reasons to go into a Forge build, but even if you just ignore the fact that you have to go into a Forge build, this is 2 energy for 13 block. The upgrade on this I don't remember, but it makes the numbers much bigger. It's like 15 or 18 block. And then Forge 10 basically means you can attack for 20 some other turn. You can kind of think of this like 4 mana, block for 13, attack for 20. Like a split card, you can choose which half you want. It's a good card. And now we get to talk about scaling. So yeah, basically, you've got your damage, you've got your basic star support, you've got some good blocking cards to survive. You're running through Act 1, you've kind of entered Act 2. Now you can start becoming a god and plan what build you want to go into. So the most reliable builds that I've found have been using Radiate or some combination of Void Form or Genesis just to play like a star mid-range build where you're just playing good cards and like getting good block, getting good attack. These two tend to be the most reliable. I find Radiate as the most powerful, but I think that fits my specific playstyle. I suspect most players will have a good time with just star mid-range good stuff type deck. There are some acceptable cards. These are kind of just worse versions of Radiate, but sometimes you don't find Radiate, and these are totally fine damage sources. Lunar Blast is probably the hardest to make work, but this is a nice payoff if you have like an infinite deck or a pseudo-infinite deck, because you can scale the damage up quite a lot. Situationally, guards, like the minion thinning your deck can work. I say situationally because you basically just have to have this card to make it happen. But guards can exhaust like 8 cards from your deck. And if you have like a 16 card deck, you can assemble an infinite so quickly with this. So when I say situational, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means you gotta have guards. And if you have guards, you can build a small deck going for infinites. Tends to be the best like Lunar Blast type payoff. Forge can work. I know there's a lot of people saying it sucks. It's an archetype you can make work. It's just not the best one. I think the biggest issue with Forge, we'll talk about later, is just some bosses and some enemies just completely hose the archetype, and it makes it feel kind of bad. So hopefully this will get tweaked. And then the colorless card generation is just bad. This one, like this card needs to cost 0 for it to be playable, basically. Because the problem is, with this one, you're spending 2 energy to add 3 random cards into your hand. It clogs up your deck. You're only going to have like 3 energy. So like, you might not even get a playable card out of this. So just don't take this card. It's not good. Okay, so the first, and I think the most reliable archetype for this character is what I'll just call Starfall, which is multi-hit cards that scale based on how much star you have, or if generated, you can spend it. Radiate tends to be the best one, because it's damage to all enemies, but Stardust is a great backup. 5 damage to a random enemy X times. Just harder in multi-enemy combats. But you can make both of these numbers so big, you can just kill anything at any time. So this is like my plan A for this character, but I think that just aligns better with my playstyle. So for most people, this would probably be a plan B. We'll talk about it. This card is the most important for them by far. Just Royal Gamble. This is, you gain 9 star in 1 turn. Suddenly Radiate's hitting for 3 times 9. That's a great place to begin. So this is almost mandatory to get into this archetype. It's pretty hard to do without it, although you can do it with a lot of other sustained generation. But the main, if you just want to win, decisions into Royal Gamble is such an easy way to kill with either one of these 2 cards, because you're generating like 27 star. If you can boost this damage even a little bit, that's enough to kill most enemies. So take these kind of cards highly. Hidden Cache in particular is pretty good with Radiate because you can get 3 next turn, so you can have like a setup turn. Same with Genesis, you can just get 3 per turn. Knockout Blow gives 5. So if you can set up knockout blow into Radiate. This will do 15 to all enemies. This is actually a pretty solid early game card too, because turn 1, you get 3 star for free. So at a base rate, if this is in your opening hand, it just does 9 to everything. So yeah, just take this card, basically. And then the other thing you want with this is Vigor. I was talking about ways to make the number go up. Patter, really good early game card, but it's kind of nice that it does double duty here. It'll effectively double the damage of your Radiate. It just takes 3 damage, makes it 5. So that's great. The other one, Vigor, is 6 Vigor, I think. And that's how you can start doing a lot of damage. It upgrades to do 8. So instead of doing 3 damage per star, it would be 11 damage per star. So now if you're gaining 9 star, you're doing 99 damage. Just from that 3-card combo. And the nice thing about Vigor is it lasts through turns. And that's the nice thing about this character is you don't have to do it all in one turn. You can just play, you can stack up Vigor, right? You can play Terraforming, play another Terraforming. As long as you don't play attacks, you're not going to lose that Vigor the whole fight. So you can wait and wait and wait and wait, and then finally use all your Vigor on one big attack. And that tends to be something that can happen. So that's why, like, if you get more than one patter, it's kind of great, because you can block, wait a turn, block, wait a turn. Your next hit does like 55 damage per star you create or whatever, and you just kill them. There's probably, I have so many videos of this, so if you want to see it in action, just go watch my videos. It's very, like, clear how you do it. The next one is Value Star. I think this one's more self-explanatory. You just get Star, and you play good cards. Child of the Stars is, like, the most important card for this archetype, because it just gives you free block. But, like, Reflect and Comet, like, you're just playing good cards, getting Star, and you're just gonna win through, like, sheer power, because a lot of the good star cards cost no energy. So you can spend all of your energy, like, setting up, doing other things, and then you're just like, oh, by the way, I have this 0 cost, 33 damage, 3 weak, 3 vulnerable card. It's ridiculous. This is still the best card for the archetype. If you just take this card, and then everything's free. As I mentioned before, it makes star costs 0. So, yeah, it's crazy. This one also very important. And these are some of the best enablers. There's a lot of overlap between all of the archetypes with this character, which is kind of nice because you could just take the good cards and then figure out what specific archetype you're going into later. Like Convergence goes in basically every deck, Glow, Hidden Cache, Genesis. These go in basically any deck that cares about Star, which tends to be 80% of the decks on this character. And then these, if you get really lucky, are like some really good enablers. Big Bang, there's basically no cost to taking this card, but it gives you energy, Star, Forge, draw a card. Like, this just does everything you want. Decisions also, I mean, you can decisions into Big Bang. You know, you can do it into Particle Wall, Foregone Conclusions. Like, this is a really powerful enabler. It can be hard to make work, and like filling up your hand with too many cards can be a problem with this, actually. But this just gives you that like little extra push towards, hey, we could start just killing it, like bosses, very quickly. And then Foregone Conclusion, next turn, get whatever 2 cards you want. That lets you set up your combos very nicely. Lunar Blast is basically just a worse version of Starfall, and I wouldn't recommend this as plan A, but like, if you don't see anything else and you need some damage quickly, basically I would only play Lunar Blast if you have decisions, or like have access to it. Like, you see both of these in the shop, you could kind of move into that archetype. Or if you can thin your deck to have no cards in it, then Lunar Blast is a fine payoff for an infinite deck. But basically, with Lunar Blast, you want to go decisions into either Terraforming for more vigor. Monologue says whenever you play a skill this turn, gain 1 strength. Or the best case is you play decisions into decisions, and then you get to play 3 cards 3 times. And then you go Monologue 3 times, Terraforming 3 times, and then you Lunar Blast for like 600. I think this is probably the hardest deck to build, so if you're new to it or if this seems daunting, kind of just avoid this archetype and stick to the more straightforward ones. But this one's really fun if you can make it work. And then these are kind of the last few enablers. Alignment, if you can set up infinites, this is a good one. Particle Wall, if you have a lot of Star, you can just play this a lot of times to get more like triggers for Lunar Blasts. And then guards, if you play this, turn a bunch of things into minion sacrifice and then play the minion sacrifice. That's just a lot of like card plays to make Lunar Blast do more damage. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about Forge. Generally, I would just say you will do better if you avoid this archetype, but there are some cards that make it worthwhile, and I expect this one will be pretty easy for them to balance to be more powerful, later on in early access. Me personally, I don't really touch Forge unless I see one of these cards, Seeking Edge being the most important one, because Sovereign Blade deals damage to all enemies. That shores up the biggest weakness with this archetype, which is you can only forge one enemy, and then you have to wait to redraw your 2-cost thing and then forge another enemy. So if I take Seeking Edge, I'd be pretty happy. Sword Sage and Conqueror can also power it up quite a lot, where this does double damage, this does double damage. If you combine these together, you can do insane amounts of damage. So if you see Seeking Edge, probably take it. Try and move into the Forge archetype, but otherwise you can kind of ignore the Forge cards unless you're really desperate. Just the problem with this is you're just almost never playing Sovereign's Blade twice, because it costs 2, and then it goes back into your deck and reshuffles and it's a 2-cost. Sometimes you can, but it's hard to make that work in practice. And then multiple enemies also are a problem. Like you kill this one, then you have to redraw it, and then you kill this one, and you have to redraw it, and then you kill this one. And it's just slow. So if you look at Spoils of Battle, it's Forge 10, so this makes Sovereign's Blade do 20 damage. You had to spend a whole card to turn this into a 20 damage card, whereas a base common just does 18 damage unupgraded on its own, and you don't have to spend a whole card and 3 energy to do it. So there's just a lot of stuff that outscales Forge, but like I said, take these first. You can build the archetype. It's not completely horrible. It's just harder to make work, and I would really only go into it if there's nothing else showing up. And then lastly, we get to the Colorless synergies, which is probably the worst archetype on the character right now, which is very unfortunate. But I think this one, of all of them, is probably the easiest to fix. They just have to change the cost of these. If Bundle of Joy costed 0, playable card. Or if it made them free to play this turn and costed 2, also playable card. Same with Quasar. If this made it free to play or costed nothing, you would get into a more of a playable archetype here. But for now, just kind of ignore these, except for maybe this one or Spectrum Sift. They're okay, but you'll probably do better just ignoring them. Yeah, they're expensive. You have no control over what you're getting, and the cards just clog your deck. You're just giving yourself status cards a lot of the time. It's funny when you compare Bundle of Joy to Prophesize, because Prophesize isn't even that good of a card. I wouldn't recommend taking this most of the time, because 2 energy is a lot for card draw. But this is 2 energy for 3 random cards. This is 2 energy for 6 cards that you've selected in your deck. This one is hardly playable, so this one is like, it's so bad. The only possibility that I see, I have yet to try this, I've yet to see this card, but when you play Colorless card, gain 1 strength does seem promising. So I haven't done it, but I could see something like Arsenal working with guards, or if Debris is colorless, I don't know if it is, then you could play the Debris to get 1 strength. I still probably wouldn't do it with Crash Landing, but with guards, you can go Arsenal guards, and then transform your hand into Minion Sacrifice, block for 9, gain 1 strength for each one. There's some cool things there. So I have my eye on this card, but I personally haven't played it. And then Deck Thin Infinites is like the last archetype to work towards. These are the 4 cards to look for. Tyranny is actually quite nice. You just exhaust every turn. You can thin your deck very quickly. So Tyranny, Begone, Guards, Charge. Just put these in your deck, get your deck really small. And then the Infin is just Alignment and Glow. Pretty easy to set up because this is a common. You just need 1 uncommon and 2 Glow. If you upgrade this, it gets 2 stars, so you can Glow Alignment, Glow Alignment. Just draw your deck and then spend the extra star that you get on whatever you want to win with. So that's another totally valid archetype that I have a lot of fun with. Alright, and as promised, here's the tier list for the character. The specific ordering within each tier isn't fully fleshed out. I think, the game's been out for a week. It's hard to know if Genesis is better than Royal Gamble, but the tier to tier structure is I'm pretty happy with this. So I would put, for me, it's like Radiate, Void Form, and Guards are like the best, the top three. And then Big Bang, it's just good. It's just good. You could just take it. It goes in any deck. There's no downside to it, really. The Sealed Throne, I think this is like a special event card, but if you can get this special event card, it's whenever you play card gains stars. That is an engine builder for sure. Then Royal Gamble, Genesis, Comet's really, really good. Child of the Stars, the best block engine. If you get this, you just don't need to block because the star cards do it. And then Glow is the only S tier common. So keep that in mind, I guess. Then we get to A. I like Charge a lot because I think the deck thinning is very valuable. Convergence also really good. Bombardment, Reflect, Knockout Blow, Shining Strike, 7 stars. Heavenly Drill, like, I personally haven't played it. It's kind of a weird card, but it is just kind of good damage. So the reason I'm putting it at A tier is it's just flexible and not terrible. But it doesn't really go in any specific archetype for the character. You can combine it with something like Hegemony, get some extra energy next turn, and then this can hit for huge damage because it doubles X if it's 4 or more. But kind of a weird card. More cards we talked about. Begone, definitely A tier. Guiding Star, Photon Cut, Celestial Might. This is only an A tier because it's a common. But like maybe this should be in B tier, to be honest. Like high B tier, low A tier. It's a pretty good card. In Arsenal, I have it in A tier, but I don't know. I haven't played with it. This could be F tier. I just don't know. So it's here because it seems strong, but I haven't tried it out in practice. B tiers, these are still all totally playable cards. They're just like more situational, like Tyranny. Excellent card if you can combine it with something like Charge and Begone. Start building that. I like the Vigor cards a lot because you have so many multi-hit things. Specifically, Patter, Celestial Might. That combo has got me through so many runs. Terraforming, more situational than Patter, but really good. Where are we at? Make It Stow is a weird card. It looks like an archetype card, but in my mind, it's kind of just 6 damage for 0, which is okay. It's not incredible and it's not bad. What are some others that show up? I Am Invincible is a very weird card, but there are quite a few things you can do to enable it, like Cosmic Indifference. Put a card on top of your draw pile. So you can set up I Am Invincible to become free block. You can also do it with Glimmer. That's kind of nice. And these synergies also work with Kingly Punch. Deal 8 damage whenever you draw this card, increases damage by 3 this combat. This isn't like a card you scale into. This is basically 11 damage for 1 mana, which is serviceable. Sometimes you can get it up to 14, but it's not like a card you can rely on to start like one-shotting bosses with most of the time. But it is a good one to go infinite with. But like you can win with any card when you've gone infinite. Know Thy Place is fine. It reminds me a lot of Neutralize from the Defect or the Silent. I think it's the 0-cost starter card that gets vulnerable or weakened. The problem with this card is the upgrade. Instead of making it too weak to vulnerable exhaust, it just makes it not exhaust. And like this exhausting is kind of good. So the upgrade of this card is quite poor, unfortunately. But overall, these are okay. This card is in B tier because it's like the only thing that would make me start looking at forging. C tier is where things like start getting a little bit sketchy. These are the cards you can take, but you probably want to avoid if possible. Or they're very situational, like Monologue. Monologue is really good. Monologue goes to like A tier if you have a deck that has 1 to 2 decisions. Where is it? Yeah, if you have like 1 to 2 of these and like Foregone Conclusion, and then you're trying to set up like a Radiate or 7 stars. Monologue does get better because you can get strength very easily. But in general, it's weaker than it looks. Black Hole as well. This one actually, you know what? I'm gonna put this in B tier. This card, I want to put both these in low B tier because they are better than everything else here by significant. I'm gonna put this here too. Yeah, these are like still playable. Kingly Kick is like if you're really desperate for damage, this is basically just 3 mana, 24 damage. You can enable it. It just it's like it should be free because the next time you quote unquote enable it, it's still gonna cost 2 mana for 24 damage, which is just barely above rate for like Celestial Might, which is a common that doesn't require any like special loops to jump through. So I don't know, we'll put this here, I guess. But then these are kind of the cards. If you just don't take any of these, you'll probably have an easier time with the character. Um, this like 2 energy to draw cards is hard because how are you gonna like you don't have any energy left over to do anything with that. And then the cards that make random colorless cards, like Heirloom Hammer, 2 mana for 17 is okay, but it makes 2 random colorless cards in your hand, which is kind of just a downside because you don't know what they are and they could just be bad. There's so many colorless cards in the like pool, and a lot of them don't do well. They're like quite situational. Um, but you can make this work. I think it's like kind of generally playable, but you would like it's a rare. You would like better rares. And then I have all of the forge cards basically in like low C tier, which is like you can make it work. These cards are playable. It's an archetype that can function. You can kill bosses with. It's just hard to get into, and like there are some bosses you just can't kill with the sword unless you have like Seeking Edge or double hit. So it just sets yourself up for failure. And then D is like just don't play these. They're all quite bad. The problem with parry, like when you play Sovereign Blade gain 6 block, it seems cool and maybe this one's okay. I'll put this one like high D tier, I guess. But the problem is you're only playing Sovereign Blade like once, maybe twice per run. So this is a 1-cost power that might give you 6 to 12 block. There are single cards that just block for that much, so just take those cards instead. Yeah, and that's all of the that's all the cards in the character. So if you like this, let me know. Please consider subscribing, and let me know which characters you'd like to see, if any, these guides for. Because the other 3 have been around for a couple of years, but if you want to see a guide on them, I'll do it. And let me know. See you guys next time.